Rain hammered down on the shattered silence of Earth's capital, as if the heavens themselves wept in sync with humanity. Hours earlier, the broadcast had ended. 4 women, diplomats, emissaries of hope, had been bound, humiliated, and hanged before 1 billion alien eyes. The Galactic Empire had called it justice, punishment for humanity's refusal to kneel. To Earth, it was murder. To families, it was a wound deeper than any war could cut. President Arya Solon watched the replay in the War Council chamber, unable to tear her gaze from the faces of the executed. Her knuckles whitened against the table, nails biting into wood as though she could anchor herself against the tide of rage pressing inward from every soul in the room. The Empire had not simply killed her diplomat. They had declared open war against the human spirit. Around her, the council was fracturing into voices raised with fury. General Kalen Vey slammed his fist into the table, rattling glasses of water. They think we are insects. They think our people will cower because they strung 4 of ours up like livestock in front of the stars. I say no more waiting. No more peace talks. We take the war to them. Across from him, Dr. Ilara Miles, Chief of Human Sciences and Architect of Earth's fledgling fleet, shook her head. Her voice was low, but carried weight sharper than steel. We are not ready for a full assault. Their fleets outnumber ours 100 to 1. Their weapons cut through steel as if it were cloth. If we rush blindly, we condemn billions more. Kalen leaned forward, eyes burning. Billions will die anyway if we let them dictate the pace. You saw what they did. You saw her face before. His voice broke, the anger buckling beneath memory. His sister, Leora Vey, had been one of the 4 women executed. The chamber fell silent. Even the hum of the power grids beneath the council dome seemed to dim. Arya's throat tightened. She forced herself to speak, though every word scraped against grief. We all saw. We all lost something in that moment. Those women weren't just emissaries. They were symbols of our faith in peace. The Empire turned that faith into a noose. Her words lingered like smoke, filling every corner. A holographic projection flickered to life at the center of the table. The last still frame of the broadcast, the 4 women kneeling, rain slick on their dresses, rope cutting into their flesh. Humanity's daughters. Humanity's shame. Counselor Idrin Cho, an elder statesman whose cynicism had often tempered fiery debates, rose with unexpected firmness. We have been naive. The Empire is not a civilization of reason. It is a beast draped in crowns and banners. And beasts are not bargained with. They are fought until they bleed. Murmurs rippled across the chamber, a current of agreement, fear, and inevitability. Dr. Miles adjusted her spectacles, the glint of calculation sharp in her eyes. If we are to fight, we must be cleverer than them. The Empire assumes superiority. That arrogance can be turned into a weapon. But it will take time. Weeks, months, maybe years, to reforge our industry into war engines. General Vey snapped back. Time is exactly what they'll strip from us. You think they'll sit idle while we prepare? They'll come again, harder, because they believe fear is enough to chain us. His voice cracked with restrained fury. They will come for our children. For yours. President Arya raised a hand, commanding silence. She could feel the weight of billions pressing on her shoulders, farmers staring at the sky, soldiers sharpening their blades, families whispering prayers for vengeance. Her decision would ignite or extinguish that fire. She stood slowly, voice steady though her heart thundered. We cannot undo what was done. We cannot bring them back. But we can make sure the galaxy remembers their names, not as victims, but as the spark of humanity's wrath. I will not allow their deaths to be the prelude to submission. From this moment, Earth is at war. A stillness fell, then an eruption, shouts, pounding fists, cries of assent and fear alike. The words had been spoken, and there was no unmaking them. Later, when the chamber emptied, Kalen lingered. His broad shoulders were bowed, fists trembling. Arya approached him, her tone softer. I know what she meant to you. He looked at her, jaw rigid, grief etched raw across his features. She wanted peace. She believed in it so much she gave her life for it. And they broke her for that belief. She gave humanity something greater, Arya said. Resolve. And I need you, Kaelin. Not just your anger. Your mind. You fought wars. You know how to turn loss into strategy. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. Dr. Miles entered quietly, her steps measured. If this is the path we walk, we need every ounce of brilliance, every scrap of ingenuity. I'll begin recalibrating the Artemis Protocol. It was meant for colonization. With some adjustments, it could forge weapons they won't anticipate. Arya exhaled, tension unraveling slightly. Then it begins. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Outside the council dome, crowds had already gathered. Screens replayed the execution, not censored but emblazoned across towers as if humanity demanded never to forget. People wept openly, embraced strangers, and lifted their fists to the storm. From the ashes of despair, a singular voice rose across continents, carried by chants, songs, and defiance. We are not slaves. It spread like wildfire, igniting across time zones, languages, and cities until the words became a roar that shook the earth itself. Soldiers saluted. Scientists worked without pause. Children pressed their palms against windows, watching the skies with new understanding. In orbit, shipyards sparked to life. Skeleton frames of vessels long mothballed groaned awake. The Empire had sought to break humanity's will. Instead, it had crystallized it into something unyielding. And in the quiet hours of night, when the President allowed herself a moment of solitude, she replayed the broadcast one last time. She forced herself to look into their eyes, the four women unflinching even in the shadow of death. She whispered their names. Then, with steel in her voice, she vowed, "You will be avenged." The galaxy had not yet understood what storm it had summoned. But it soon would. The war did not begin with firestorms, but with silence. Factories that once forged the bones of cities were repurposed overnight into forges of war. The hum of industry rose across continents, a rhythm of iron and resolve. Humanity's sorrow had condensed into something harder, sharper. Every rivet driven into steel was a vow. Every ship launched into orbit was a clenched fist raised against the Empire. General Kaelin Vey stood upon the deck of the Resolute, the first of Earth's new warships. Its hull was scarred from rushed construction, its weapons still untested in combat, but to him it was a miracle, a blade hammered from grief and necessity. He gazed through the viewport at the swelling armada above Earth, hundreds of vessels taking form like constellations reborn into war. He felt his sister's presence in the hum of the engines, as though her spirit had been woven into the steel. Dr. Ilara Miles joined him, her lab coat replaced by a military uniform that never seemed to sit comfortably on her shoulders. "The Artemis Protocol is operational," she reported, voice calm despite the exhaustion that hollowed her features. "We've converted colony drive technology into a distributed weapons matrix. It won't match the Empire's dreadnoughts in brute strength, but it will let us strike faster, adapt quicker. If we survive long enough, adaptation will be our weapon." Kaelin's jaw tightened. "Survival isn't enough. We need victories, Ilara. Something to prove to our people that we can bleed the Empire." She glanced at him, her expression half weary, half resolute. "You speak like a soldier. I think like a scientist. Together, maybe we can make something new." Across the system, President Arya Solon broadcast to every city, colony, and outpost under human command. Her face was tired, her voice carved from equal parts steel and sorrow. "The Empire thought they could silence us with a noose. Instead, they gave us a cause that binds us stronger than fear. This is not just war. It is survival. It is justice. And it will be written in the stars by our hands." The first tests came swiftly. Empire scouts pierced the system, lean warships gliding into orbit with contemptuous ease. They transmitted demands. Surrender Earth's leaders, dismantle its fleets, deliver resources in tribute. When the signals went unanswered, the Empire's vessels fired upon civilian stations to remind humanity of their fragility. Kalen's fleet met them at the edge of the moon's shadow. The clash was brutal, lopsided at first. Empire beams carved through human armor, slicing vessels apart like paper. Yet in the chaos, Ilara's reprogrammed systems turned desperation into ingenuity. Human ships adapted their formations mid-battle, redirecting power flows, creating false sensor echoes, twisting weakness into unpredictable advantage. For every vessel lost, 2 more adjusted their tactics, as though humanity itself were learning with each death. The Resolute landed the final strike of the skirmish, a barrage of improvised warheads detonating inside the enemy flagship's shield envelope. Kalen watched the alien vessel shatter in silence, light flaring across the void like a second sun. For the first time, human soldiers cheered not out of defiance, but out of triumph. The victory was small, almost trivial in scale, but its echo spread farther than the Empire realized. Across the galaxy, oppressed species whispered of humans who had slain an Imperial warship. Chains loosened, hope rekindled. The Empire scoffed at the rumors, but within their war councils unease began to stir. Arya convened her advisors in the aftermath. "The galaxy is watching," she said, her gaze heavy on both Kalen and Ilara. "They saw 4 of ours die in chains. Now they must see the Empire bleed. Every battle we win is not only for Earth, it is for the countless others who live under their boot." Kalen answered with conviction. "Then we strike again, harder, faster. Don't give them time to smother the story." But Ilara cautioned restraint. "We are building the foundation of a war machine from nothing. Recklessness will undo us before momentum can favor us. Every engagement must teach us something, every victory must cost us less than the one before." Their arguments clashed like blades, yet Arya saw the truth in both. Kalen was fire, Ilara was stone. One could not win without the other. "Then you will lead together," she decreed. "Soldier and scientist. Vengeance and vision. Humanity's war will be shaped by both of you." In the weeks that followed, the Empire escalated. Skirmishes became sieges. Star systems burned. Humanity bent but did not break. Where ships fell, new ones rose with refinements, born of lessons carved in blood. Where soldiers died, recruits lined up by the thousands, faces fierce with grief transformed into purpose. Kalen grew harder, each loss another weight dragging him deeper into the role of commander. He no longer shouted in anger. His words became quiet orders, sharpened by the memory of his sister's final moments. The men and women under his command did not merely obey him, they followed him, bound to his grief as if it were their own. Ilara buried herself in laboratories that had become war engines. Her brilliance unfolded like a storm. Adaptive AI matrices, self-repairing alloys, weapons that turned physics itself into a blade. She did not weep for the dead. She turned them into equations, into strategies, into survival. Some whispered that her mind was drifting too far from humanity into cold calculation, but Kalen alone saw the fire that still burned beneath the logic. She too carried ghosts, though she did not speak their names. And through it all, President Arya became the voice of Earth. She did not allow the people to forget the execution that had ignited their fury. Footage of the 4 women, once a symbol of despair, was now woven into banners, etched into ships, painted on walls. They were no longer victims, they were saints of resistance, martyrs whose deaths had unshackled humanity's rage. Yet the conflict sharpened to a point. A message arrived from the Empire, not arrogant this time but edged with warning. A vast fleet was assembling on the border, a force that would descend upon Earth and erase its defiance in one decisive strike. The Council debated endlessly. Some urged retreat into the void, scattering humanity to survive as nomads. Others demanded a stand at Earth, to defend their home at all costs. Arya listened, weighing every plea, then turned to her two pillars. Kaelin, Elara, the choice is not mine alone. What do you see? Kaelin's answer came swift. We fight them here. Earth is more than soil, it is identity. If we abandon it, we surrender more than land. We surrender ourselves. Elara's reply was slower, but no less certain. If we stand here, we must not merely defend. We must make them pay. Break their arrogance, shatter their illusions of superiority. If Earth bleeds, it must be a wound the Empire never forgets. Arya closed her eyes, hearing the faint echo of the four women's final breaths. She saw their faces, felt the weight of their sacrifice. When she opened them, her decision was carved into her bones. Then we prepare for the storm. If the Empire wants to erase us, we will carve our defiance into the stars themselves. Beyond the orbit of Neptune, human fleets gathered in silence. Engines flared, weapons gleamed, hearts steeled. They were smaller, weaker, untested compared to the Empire's juggernaut, but they were ready. The void above Neptune burned with the light of war. The Empire's fleet emerged from hyperspace like an iron tide, hundreds of warships blotting out the stars, their formation precise and merciless. The Empire had no intention of a prolonged campaign. This was annihilation, a single strike to crush humanity's defiance before it spread further. To the aliens who commanded, Earth was an irritant, not an equal. But to humanity, this battle was no mere defense. It was judgment. General Kaelin Vey stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes locked on the tactical display as enemy signatures filled the screen. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of a commander who knew there would be no retreat. Positions. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. Today, we carve their arrogance into their graves. His officers moved with grim precision, fear tempered into steel by his presence. He did not speak of survival. He spoke of vengeance, and that made the crew unyielding. Dr. Elara Miles remained in the control nexus deep within the ship, her hands moving over glowing consoles as she orchestrated the adaptive systems she had built. The Artemis Protocol was no longer theory, it was humanity's lifeline. Fleet data streamed through her algorithms, constantly recalibrating shield harmonics, adjusting formations, redirecting firepower. Where the Empire expected predictability, she gave them chaos honed into art. Yet even as she guided the battle, she whispered to herself, a mantra she dared not voice aloud. Don't fail them. Don't let their deaths be for nothing. President Arya Solon watched from the War Command bunker on Earth, every heartbeat synchronized with the reports streaming in from orbit. Her words, sent across encrypted channels to every soldier and pilot, were steady despite the tremor in her chest. You fight not just for Earth, but for every world that suffers in silence under the Empire's chains. Show them that humanity is no prey. Show them that we are the storm. The Empire struck first, their weapons lancing through the void with beams that tore through the hulls of human ships like fire through paper. Explosions rippled across the battlefield, fragments of steel scattering into the black. The human fleet staggered, but it did not break. Kaelin's voice cut through the chaos. Close the gap. Force them to fight where their numbers mean less. Elara's systems responded in kind. Shields modulated mid-strike, weapons redirected with millisecond precision, decoys mimicked entire squadrons. The Empire faltered for the first time, their formations disrupted by tactics no machine intelligence had predicted. Human ships darted in and out like wolves against lions, tearing at weaknesses with reckless brilliance. Still, the price was terrible. Kaelin watched comrades vanish in blinding flashes, entire crews consumed before they could cry out. Every loss carved deeper into him, each death a reminder of the four who had begun it all. Yet he did not waver. He wielded grief as a blade, cutting decisions sharp and merciless. Target their command carriers. Break their chain of control. The Resolute led the charge, weaving through the storm of plasma fire. Elara overrode safety protocols, pushing the ship beyond its limits, her mind burning with calculations. Engines screamed, shields buckled, but they broke through. Human warheads detonated against the Empire's carriers, tearing through their gilded hulls. Alien admirals, so certain of victory, were silenced in fire. For a moment, silence stretched across the void. Then, impossibly, the Empire faltered. Their formation fractured, discipline unraveling in the face of an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. Humanity surged forward, exploiting every hesitation. Where the Empire hesitated, humanity struck without mercy. On Earth, billions watched the battle streamed in fragments, every flare of light above Neptune mirrored in gasps and cries below. Children pressed their hands against glowing screens. Families prayed aloud. Soldiers across the planet prepared to fight in the streets if the orbit failed. Every soul was bound together by one truth. Humanity had reached the brink and there was no going back. The turning point came when the Resolute sustained a direct hit. The bridge rocked, alarms screaming as consoles exploded in sparks. Kalen was thrown to the deck, blood streaming down his temple. Crew members rushed to seal ruptures, but the ship was dying. Elara's voice crackled over comms, tight with urgency. If we hold position another minute, we can cripple their flagship. But it will tear us apart. Kalen pulled himself to his feet, vision blurred, but resolve unbroken. Do it. If this ship burns, it burns with purpose. The Resolute surged forward on failing engines, shields collapsing under the Empire's relentless barrage. Elara's final calculations fed into the weapons array, a storm of warheads detonating at point-blank range. The Empire's flagship convulsed in fire, its core shattering into a chain reaction that ripped through half the fleet. The shock wave tore into the Resolute. Systems failed, lights dimmed, and silence fell as the ship drifted. Kalen stood amidst the ruin of his bridge, the void blazing outside with wreckage. His chest heaved, every muscle screaming, but he smiled, a grim, exhausted smile. The Empire's pride lay in ruins. Humanity had struck a wound they would never forget. Across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. The Empire, for the first time in living memory, had been defeated in open battle. The myth of their invincibility cracked. In slave camps and occupied worlds, whispers became shouts, shouts became riots, and riots became uprisings. The ripple humanity had created spread far beyond Neptune. On Earth, Arya delivered the words that would define the age. We are no longer the hunted. We are no longer the voiceless. The Empire sought to hang us before the stars. Now it is they who dangle, broken by the hands they sought to chain. We will not stop. We will not bow. Let the galaxy bear witness. Humanity has risen. Kalen, half-conscious in the wreckage, heard fragments of her speech through the static. He thought of his sister, of the 4 women who had been sacrificed to the Empire's arrogance. He thought of the soldiers who had followed him into fire, of the scientists who had turned despair into innovation, of the billions who now stood unafraid. With his last strength, he whispered into the void, "You are avenged." Elara, her hands still trembling over darkened consoles, allowed herself a single breath of release. Not triumph, not joy, only the knowledge that humanity had endured the impossible and struck back. Her eyes flickered toward the burning wreckage of alien ships, and for the first time in months, she felt the faint pulse of hope. The battle was over, but the war had only begun. The Empire, humiliated, would return with fury unlike any seen before. Yet humanity no longer stood alone in darkness. They had proven themselves, not as subjects, not as prey, but as equals in the theater of war. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. And as the wreckage of Neptune's battlefield drifted into silence, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, as though bearing witness to a truth that could not be undone. Humanity, once underestimated, had become the storm.